Greetings and welcome to Jefficho Films. Today we're going to review a 1997 Irish-British sword movie with Stephen Moyer from True Blood, Katherine Heigl, Ron Perlman, and Thomas Kretschmann. So let's review Prince Valiant. This movie starts out with some Vikings and Morgan Le Fay digging up Merlin's grave to get his book. Next she wants Excalibur. We get some comic book storytelling which is done throughout the film, I'm guessing to save money. We find out that Thule wants the sword so that they can rule the world. Then we travel to Camelot, where Sir Gawain is getting knocked off his horse during a jousting contest. His squire Valiant is trying to help him out and get back into the tent, while making sexy eyes at Arthur's guest, Lady Eileen.
Sir Gawain? He's fine. We just need a moment to fix his armor.
Gawain is in no shape to continue the contest, so Valiant climbs into his armor, goes out there and defeats Prince Arn, Eileen's fiancé. Inside the castle, one of Arthur's knights stumble across all the Vikings who are trying to steal Excalibur. He does alright for himself for a bit, but then everyone far away hears his screams. They all ride back to see that he's been slain and the sword is gone. They find some cloth inside the dead man's hands that the Vikings put there to implicate the Scots, and all the men rally behind Arthur. Val is busy taking care of Gawain until he gets interrupted by Eileen, who sneaks in there and says that she wants to become a knight to him. But then the king calls him away and he's able to keep his identity a secret, well, at least from her.
I think I can explain.
What I want to know is how a squire manages to defeat one of the most skilled knights in all of Britain.
Luck?
With all his other knights busy, Arthur gives him a mission to deliver Eileen to her homestead in Wales, but he must keep the Gawain's armor on. The Vikings arrive home, and Thagnar gives the sword to his brother Silgon, who's a usurper. The sword has great power, blessed by the gods of Avalon, protected by the Lady of the Lake, but it falls into some stone, and only a true king can remove it. Silgon tries, but he fails. Morgana is pissed and uses her mirror to seek another who could lift it. It shows her Gawain, who's actually just Valiant in his armor. On the road, Eileen is taken and the men attacked, and Valiant tracks her down to this cave that's made to look like a dragon. Inside is Ron Perlman and a bunch of women and a lot of treasure. He manages to scare them off, but his identity is revealed to Eileen. Back in Camelot, against Arthur's recommendation, Gawain is heard of Valiant's delay and decides that he's gonna ride off and go help.
Gawain, you're in no condition to ride, let alone to fight.
With all due respect, sir, you read the message from Bramwin. Val hasn't arrived. I trained that boy. He wouldn't delay without serious cause. I have to help him if I can.
The rain machine is working overtime during Eileen and Val's flirting. She gets him to feel her leg while talking about her fiancé. That's not awkward. We learn Valiant was orphaned as a young boy, and this little pendant's all he's had ever since. And once they get close to Eileen's home, Val figures it's a trap, and there's a lot of archers there. His men are attacked, and they're pretty much useless. Gawain shows up to help out, but Val's knocked into the water, and Eileen jumps in to save him, and Gawain's taken captured. Young Katherine Heigl is pretty hot, so I'm sure Val's not going to complain, but once he climbs out of the water and collapses and he's exhausted, she just starts kissing him, which is kind of weird. And her dad's watching and a bunch of his men because they found them. And her dad is Eric from Willow. That's pretty cool. There's some nice large but simple sets of Eileen's home, and they want Val to go and find Prince Arn and tell him it wasn't the Scots. So Eileen gives him her engagement ring from Prince Arn, because that's the only way he'll believe her. He also asks for some lighter armor.
Princess Eileen of Bramwin gave me this. She said you would know I speak true. What have you done with her? She's safe at home in Bramwin. No! Must listen! Our quarrel is not with the Scots, but with the Vikings.
Prince Arn overreacts and doesn't believe him. Val challenges him to a fight rather than have everybody turn against him, and he defeats him, but spares his life. Eileen sneaks out and gets her horse and leaves. While we see Val and Arn have caught up to the Vikings, and we find out that there's a reason he's upset that he got the ring.
Did you ask the princess for her ring, or did she volunteer it?
She did offer it. Why?
Because she vowed to me she would never remove it. Unless she ever questioned whether I was the man she truly loved or not.
Eileen shows up and rescues Gawain just as Val and Arn show up inside the tent. They have to battle all these people inside there, and Arn is tragically killed. And then they're all captured. Solid plan, guys. Val gets thrown off the cliff by Thagnar, but as always he lands in the water and he manages to make it to a shore. He finds a horse who goes to some castle village, and then he gets into a fight trying to protect somebody that kind of looks like Willow but with a mustache. It's actually Warwick Davis and his name is Bichette.
brings you to this coastal town?
Looking for you, actually. Which is an easy job. You leave a trail like a Tuscan leper.
What makes you so interested in me?
Call it curiosity.
After winning the fight, he has some drinks with Ron Perlman, and Pichette wants to be his squire. So, his day turned out pretty good. Eileen ends up getting tossed into a hair loom, and Gawain has some performance issues. Morgana has a vision of the red stallion, and we see that the king has a trinket very similar to the pendant because he wiped out all of them. Val and his friends get to Thule, and Perlman makes some noises, and some people come out of the forest and take them to their small little area where we learn that Val was once their prince. The red stallion has returned.
This was your father's.
Eileen with all the other heirloom girls gets bathed, and I'm sorry, what were we talking about?
Great. I can do this myself.
Thagnar challenges his brother and fights him and kills him, and then he becomes the king, so he's actually able to remove the sword at that point. Thagnar calls the princess to his room because he plans on doing some stuff, but I've never seen someone more obviously roofied. Not that I've ever seen someone roofied, but there's literally like steam and foam coming out of this cup. Eileen puts some wax in his drink and almost chokes him to death, and she escapes with the sword. Morgana's been expecting Val, and she tries to bargain with him. She wants him to kill Thagnar and become his queen. Eileen cockblocks him, but it's a welcomed one.
Oops!
Eileen!
What were you doing with her?
I was looking for you!
It didn't look like it from here.
Thagnar gets a hold of the sword, and Eileen sneezes his sleeping potion at Morgana, and she falls into a pot of boiling water and dies. Of all the stories and how they kill Morgana, this is the worst. Eileen rescues Val, but then they're captured again. I mean, why kill them when you can just try to feed them to your pets that you stole from the Red Sonja set, a couple of armored crocodiles. Will sneaks in, but while they're hanging there, Eileen tells Val about her dream.
Because I love you, Valiant. I have since the moment we met.
You have? There's something I haven't told you.
The rope snaps, but then Will shows up with his sleeping potion and saves him. It only works for about 10 seconds though. Perlman's on the outside and decides this is the time to attack. They get trapped rather easily, but Val shoots a guy and the gate raises, so the battle does occur. Wow, the gate gets open and the crocs jump out of the water, and a bunch of Chinese fireworks go off too, and we see that this castle once belonged to Val's people. In any good story, you have the main bad guy fight the good guy, and Val does that against Thagnar. But Thagnar cheats, and he kills Eileen. You know, kind of a cheap move, but I respect its originality. Val manages to defeat him and get Excalibur back, and the sword glows a lot, and he takes over to Eileen, and it somehow brings her back to life. The Viking army just throws down all their weapons and starts cheering. I mean, whose side are they on? Back in Camelot, Arthur's ready to concede his power. Why? Because he doesn't have his sword? He's still got his army, Morgana's dead, he has like no opposition right now. Seems like a weird time to do it. But rather than message him, Valiant shows up after a long journey and gives him his sword. He also requests that he be given the blessing to marry Eileen.
For a Viking to marry a young Welsh princess who he has fallen deeply in love with.
Of course.
And Arthur makes him a knight and adds him to the round table. And that's where it ends. The final product was actually recut by a German producer without the director knowing, and the movie bombed. Though I heard the director was partying most nights and mostly casted his friends, so that probably didn't help either. The film was pretty poorly received by critics, and if you watch it you can kind of see why. It's a bit hokey at times when it doesn't need to be. It might get a little confusing considering there was a Prince Valiant in 1954. And in 1984, there was The Sword of Valiant, The Legend of Sir Gawain and the Green Knight with Sean Connery and Miles O'Keefe. That was a fun one. And currently, Alicia Vikander was just injured on the set of The Green Knight, a retelling of the medieval story of Sir Gawain and the Green Knight. There's so many medieval fantasy movies about Arthur and Merlin. It's kind of nice that Gawain and Valiant get their own little side stories. So even if it wasn't a great movie, it's still a fun watch. So I recommend if you haven't seen it, check it out. You might like it. Or you might think it's just complete crap. But, to each his own. As always, thanks for watching.